the outside world free in its summer holiday period.
You could just go outside, Gerad.
And show my hideous wolfen face to the children? I'd be on trial quicker than Doctor Who in the 80s, Mecha.
Well then, you will have to put up with me.
You and any other indie game we have going on in the world right now. Recently, I heard a game called Dead Cells was released.
Dead Cell? Like your Dead Cell from Metal Gear Solid?
No, a game where you can control a character who can't truly stay dead.
That is an original concept.
As original as Brooke from One Piece, Jim from Mogworld, Sir Daniel Fortescue from Medieval.
Okay, maybe not that original. My interest has been piqued, however.
Then let's try it and broadcast the results to the world.
Sure, whatever. My obsolete form needs acceptance of the human race. The Nintendo Switch must not win.
I am Gerad.
And I am Mecha.
And we're the Indie Mechanix Gaming Reviews. Dead Cells is about an undead guy who is looking for a way out of his prison cell, in its simplest terms. Developed by Motion Twin, Dead Cells is a wonderfully visual pixel side-scroller dense with enemies and sparse on difficult controls. Immediately pick-upable but difficult to master, Dead Cells focuses on a corpse running around a sort of Metroidvania type of environment, where you find new weapons and fight keepers.
Goal keepers? Like in soccer?
Keepers as in boss fights.
So it's like Castlevania and Metroid in its style.
Kind of. More roguelike. You run around exploring the locations and building up a map for yourself, finding new areas like in classic Metroid games, and battling enemies that drop stuff like in Castlevania.
What is the character's name?
He doesn't really have one. He's generally mute.
The prisoner he is then.
At least it's a name and not a number.
It looks like the aim is to fight enemies and avoid attacks like some sort of 2D Dark Souls game.
Not really. Nothing's like Dark Souls. Actually, the game is a little difficult for me right now. I think it's this stinking equipment. You have 4 slots to put things in. 2 of these are weapons, square and triangle in the PS4, and 2 are for throwables like grenades with L2 and R2. You have a choice of 3 weapons at the start, between 1 melee weapon, a rusty sword, a long-ranged weapon, a bow, and or a wooden shield. You can only pick 2 though, as you only have 2 weapon slots.
What is the shield good for?
Parrying, my good mechanical sir. Deflecting and reflecting.
It looks like there is a 5th slot with L1 used for health potions.
Indeed, although your use of health potions is apparently limited.
Your attacks do spectacular damage.
Not for long. I found some better stuff, Mecha. Now I can up my damage output.
Not by much, though.
That's where you're also wrong, my diminutive, obsolete handheld. By looking around the environment, you can find scrolls that level you up and increase your stats. You generally have a choice of 3 core stats: Brutality, Tactics, and Survival. Brutality increases your sword slashing abilities and other melee-based weapon or damage output. Tactics increases long-range weapon damage and many throwable grenades. Survival focuses more on health, but also applies to some throwable objects. The choice is yours in what you choose to focus on, although I must admit I do favour the health options, since this game can be bloody difficult.
The enemies look like they do like to swarm you at times.
Luckily, I seem to be getting the hang of this. Square to swing your melee weapon, triangle to fire your long-ranged weapon, and circle to dodge out of the way of incoming attack. Oh.
So I guess that's the game then. Dead Cells is
going to continue, apparently. So, it becomes apparent that you don't stay dead once you die. Instead of a life system, you just restart the game, with your soul infecting a new body with your dead cells.
Name drop.
Do you keep any equipment you had before? No. You quite literally start over.
That sounds like a frustrating endeavor.
It's okay, I've played through the starting section, so I know what
The environmental layout is different.
The environmental layout is different, yeah.
That means this game is procedurally generated.
Which means the platforms and overall layout changes every time. There are some key aspects that remain the same, but most of it changes with every death.
It is a shame you no longer have your previous equipment to just charge through the starting bits of the game with.
But you see, along your journey and between level areas, you encounter a bloke with a suspicious voice, like he's going to murder you in the time it takes for you to blink. Anyway, he decides to not murder you, but instead provides you with a list of purchasable boons, one of which is starting the game with a random melee weapon you acquired in a past playthrough.
Does the same work for your long-ranged weapons or shields?
Yes, you just have to purchase them first with one of the game's currencies. Cells. Dead cells.
Name drop 2, Electric Boogaloo.
By defeating enemies, you can sometimes acquire a big old placebo-looking cell from their carcass, sucking it up like a mosquito sucks up blood sundaes from your snoozing body. I'm so sorry, that was disgusting. By spending all your cells, you unlock all sorts of goodies, from new weapons to being able to use health potions multiple times in any one level. They're very useful and reward you for seeking out enemies rather than just running past everything, which you can do if you want.
Did you not say that the cells are random, Gerad? Does that not make battling enemies irritating, as you might not receive any cells at all?
Yeah, that can happen, and yeah, that can be frustrating, as cells become based on plain luck. However, there are ways to earn said cells, and it all comes down to your playstyle. You see, I also mentioned you can run past everything. With subsequent playthroughs, sometimes you don't want to go through the rigmarole of slicing up enemies in a cycle more repetitive than the daily grind of life. Going to and from work, wondering what your life is all about and drinking away your sorrows in the evening whilst vegetating in front of Netflix or playing a non-story based game just to kill things in the hope that one day your life has meaning.
That was dark.
A bit.
So instead you just run away from everything, including your problems? Is that what you're trying to say, Gerad?
Maybe. Instead, you can just run past enemies with well-timed rolls, and if you're speedy enough, you can find hourglass doors that open up when you reach them in a certain period of time. When these open, you're rewarded with loot, level ups, and of course, a menagerie of cells.
That means this game can work somewhat well for those wishing to speedrun through it as quickly as possible, although I can see that also being luck-based based on the ever-changing environment.
Next to old murder bags, who's called the Collector, by the way, is a merchant kind of guy who deals in mutations.
Ew.
Mutations give you a new ongoing ability that can benefit you in the upcoming levels. The best one to grab first, by far, is the ability to be safe from death just once. It's sourcing useful and one in which I urge anyone to go for as soon as possible. Other mutations include gaining health for every enemy you kill, to additional damage from combos and cooldown times to throwing grenades. You'll be able to equip a few more up until the first boss, in which you can choose whether you want to reset them to another 3 choices with a bit of cash.
Cash. Whoopee. So you have cash as well as sales.
Cash is found off of enemies in general and can be used to purchase much better weapons with hidden merchants in the levels.
Providing you don't already find the gear in treasure chests or from special areas.
Speaking of which, battling elite enemies, harder versions to you and me, can provide new bits of armor that enhance your abilities somewhat. Some even produce a rune. Runes give you access to new skills that help you into new areas. These skills stay with you even when you die, so they're a permanent fixture.
Oh goody, you can grow vines. What a wondrous day.
Using these in earlier areas gives you access to new doorways to entirely new areas, such as the toxic sewers. This gives you even more new stuff to explore in early stages of the game, should you die later on after acquiring said skills. Look Mecha, I can teleport now! Wait a minute, the only problem is these skills mean nothing if I keep dying over and over again.
That boss looks particularly difficult, Gerad. I do not think you will ever best it.
Quiet you. With each death I become stronger, sort of.
Shame about your equipment.
I certainly have a preferred array of gear I like to have by the time I encounter the first boss, including a fast melee weapon, long-ranged freeze spray, throwable wolf traps to keep the enemy locked in place, and mobile gun turrets to shoot whilst they're locked down.
You are a glutton for punishment. You keep coming back for more.
Well, you know what they say, you just can't keep a good dog down.
Forget I said anything.
And eventually, with enough determination, you'll beat that foe and area you were stuck on. The thing is, with each playthrough, you learn more about the enemy's attack patterns and learn how to avoid them better. Those fire zombie things leap at you from afar once they wail. Therefore, you can roll past them as they jump and then strike them whilst their back faces you. Each new area produces more enemies with new things to avoid as well as easier ways to die. Look at those bastard swordsmen, for example, teleporting and following around like a jealous ex.
Slender X.
And you think dying again and again would be frustrating. And you know what? It is.
I thought you were going to say the opposite.
But that feeling of annoyance dissipates after a short while, and you find yourself going through the prison dungeons again, thinking how best to tackle that route this time. Will you decide to just battle enemies and collect cells for the collector this time, building up more unlockable abilities to make later attempts easier? Or will you rush through and do everything as quickly as possible, finding hourglass doors but not leveling up your equipment? The choice is yours, and frankly, that makes the game way more addictive than it should be.
I thought you hated trial and error games. Remember the Midnight Station?
Yeah, and I thought I was a little bit too hard on the Midnight Station looking back at it. Dead Cells, however, does give you more with each death. You don't entirely go back to square one like with the Midnight Station, meaning you do feel a sense of progression in some manner. For that and its playstyle, it's well worth checking out on Steam, Xbox One, PlayStation 4 or Nintendo Switch if you haven't already done so.
Any other closing statements, you orphan scum?
Only that the visuals look so awe-inspiring, despite the fact they're just pixels. It's a real testament to the developer's strengths when they can make something like this just look beautiful. Other things I like are how story and lore segments can be found behind prison doors and in secret rooms and things, rewarding the player in other ways beyond just skills and gold if they go out their way to explore the environment.
With nothing more to say on this game, closing.exe of Dead Cells.
So, Dead Cells is a success! It's nice to play something fun.
Then make it sound as terrible as possible. Simplify it.
Okay. A bunch of cells force a dead body to repeat its life where it must slog through the manifestation of its own failures and neuroses in a depressing, never-ending cycle.
Wow.
I know.
I would have just said Metroid Other M in 2D.
Now there's something that should die and remain dead.